to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try and force in some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
Hey guys, welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. My name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell. You are listening to episode number 358 of the Trinity Force Podcast. As we go live on this beautiful Monday night, 5/9/2016, we are knee-deep into patch 6.9 as we've gone 4 weeks over everything that you guys need to know. And it has been the first weekend since the patch hit. All of the numbers are out for the win rates and for what champions are being played and how they're being played. And we're going to talk quite a bit about those this evening. But before we jump into that, I'm going to introduce everybody on the show. First and foremost, Punchinello is here.
Hey, everybody.
Telenasty is with us.
Hey, hey.
Cereal Box.
What's up?
And last and always least is Chira Jaden.
Hey, I made it.
Hey, wearing his King DeClaude shirt tonight.
Oh yeah.
Everybody, if you all are out there in podcast land wondering how DeClaude is doing, he's doing, I'd say, fairly well. He's surviving. He's still on Twitter making puns. Go follow him at DeClaude with no E. He would love to hear from you because he very much misses the show, and we're actually actively working with DeClaude to get him on another another network show. So you will probably hear his voice again in the future.
I like how there's two E's in DeClaude, and you said with no E, even though he does still have one.
It's DECLAWD.
That's right, DeClaude.
Just make it easy.
So, first and foremost, I want to tell you guys that, it's not first and foremost anymore, but we do have a scavenger hunt going on throughout the network right now. If you guys want to win a blue microphone, you want to have a nice streaming or podcasting setup, you want to jump in. It's not exactly the one Tally's using. It's not the Snowball. It's the Nessie, which it sits on your desk, but it still works very well. And I'm pretty sure you could jury rig an arm for it if you would like. But it's a nice intro to podcasting / intro to streaming setup. If you'd like to win one of those, you have to not only listen to this show, but you have to listen to 5 other shows in the network. You have to listen to T-Force GG, Hearth of the Cards, T-Force RPG, the LCS Rundown, the Trinity Force Proper, and Four Wards Podcast. Now, I know this sounds like a lot, but it's really not, because every show has a question that you need to answer and send it to contest@trinityforcepodcast.com. Our question is, who is always introduced last on the Trinity Force Podcast? Bonus points, not really, if you can tell me what cereal enjoys drinking on his birthday. And speaking of, happy birthday, Mitch.
Happy birthday.
Well, now it's not as happy anymore.
Happy birthday.
Mitch,
Thanks, guys.
He decided to celebrate his birthday with us tonight rather than go out and drink.
I celebrated all weekend. Don't worry. This is a good time to not be drinking.
Oh, it's just your liver can't take
so
it.
He's just hungover. Yeah.
Are you in a perpetual state of hungover?
No, I occasionally adult. It's just very rarely.
He's like
so, going to work. I think the cumulative hangover would kill me.
He just continually drinks because if he stops, the cumulative hangover will kill you. Yeah, that's the joke.
Thanks for pointing it out, Tally.
You ruined my punchline.
So, guys, please answer that. Mitch, why don't you go ahead and check the top drawer for me again?
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay. One of these days, he's got to check it. Like his roommates are going to listen to this podcast, and they're just going to like layer different drinks into your drawer.
I'm more scared because friends were here over the weekend, so that's why I really don't want to like open anything. So I don't even want to open the door out of my room.
It just comes down.
I'd say so.
Flies and smacks you in the face. All right, guys, that's the scavenger hunt. Please go listen to all the other podcasts, the 5 others that I listed. They will all have a question or some way for you to get into the scavenger hunt. They're all fairly easy. They require no time but you to listen to them, find the answer. We're doing this because we want you to listen to all the other podcasts. If you didn't know, we are the Trinity Force Network, and we have 7 total podcasts, and 6 of them are part of this scavenger hunt this time. As well, we have written articles, we have YouTube VODs. You can find all of that at trinityforcenetwork.com, which is now mobile friendly, so that is really awesome. And thank you for your patronage for the month of April as we move into May. That has hit our bank account. We have started emailing you. If you didn't receive an email, you can always ping us either on Patreon or on the subreddit or feedback at trinityforcepodcast.com. Discord. That's another thing I need to shout out. One last thing before we move into patch discussion. If you are new to the network or even old and you're wondering where everybody went, we have all moved over to Discord. Discord.trinityforcenetwork.com. We're using that exclusively for our voice chat, as well as there's lots of conversation in it during the day. There's nearly 200 people sitting in there right now. We want you to join in that Discord and really have some conversations. There's a mobile app. You can talk. You can find groups. And it's a lot easier to use than the in-game chat room because there's not that constant part and join messages that are filling up the feed. So if you want to join that, just type discord.trinityforcenetwork.com into your web browser and you press accept invite, download the application, and you'll be right in. You don't even have to use the application. It works right on the web. It's really cool. So we are going to jump right into patch 6.9 discussion. And we have a bunch of things we want to talk about. Like I mentioned, we're going to talk about champion win rates as of this patch and play rates. We're also going to talk a little bit about dragons. We're going to talk about, because there's a specific interaction with the Earth Dragon that I think every jungler needs to know about if that's up and why you need to take it. As well as we may, if we have time, we'll discuss a little bit about the Rift Herald as well. So let's just, I guess we just jump right in there. I need to go to Champion GG because, being the amazing host that I am, I'm not prepared.
That's when you lie and say you're prepared.
I am prepared now, actually. If you didn't check, if you haven't been on our Reddit, the T-Force Network, I'm gonna start posting every week like a 6 or the week after the patch. I'm gonna start posting like a weekly patch wrap up, just kind of give you ideas where champions have fallen after the patches cycle is completed. And probably the most surprising numbers out of this isn't necessarily the win rates, it's the lose rates. The losingest champion in the game right now is Swain with 36.57%, and then Cass right below that with 37.18%. And actually, Swain and Cass, top and middle, both are sub 40% win rates right now because of their changes.
Now, that could just be people not being used to those champions since some of their changes, but it doesn't look good, especially when certain other champions have been changed and are doing extremely well at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, those two are on the list for hot fixes, correct? I think Swain. So one thing they're adding to Swain is they're giving him some damage back on his Q, right? Since it's no longer targeted, that's now an area of effect. So since the damage is less reliable, it only makes sense that you should increase the damage a little bit. So that's what they're doing for him. And for Cass, I think they're lowering her mana costs and then lowering the cooldown on E by like a fraction of a percent.
Mm-hmm.
Or
E
a fraction
cooldown
of a
down
second.
to 0.75 from 0.9.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much that's going to help. I mean, people that are playing her express that she just feels clunky to play. So without playing her myself, I can't really say what that means.
Well, one of our big problems right now is that W having the fixed range on it. If a melee champion gets on top of you at any point in time, you have no way to get the champion off.
You only have ult at that point. Yep.
And the idea of not giving her boots is really cool, and having the 6th item is pretty cool, but it doesn't make up for the fact that she can't get anybody off her and actually can't kite them off them, even though that move speed. When everybody's already running around the Rift on 400 plus move speed, the extra additional move she's receiving with it and being slowed isn't enough to keep anybody off of her. And then she only has 2 abilities to do any kind of damage with if her ult is down.
I think it's that if you get the CC on her, like you can get a bunch of move speed, but at any time a slow's coming down or a stun, whatever, after somebody's already gotten to cast, yeah, it's that point it's just over. Like if you can kite them forever, which is very difficult it seems, especially in earlier levels, because she is going to be moving pretty slow once somebody gets even just standard boots. I don't like the note. I think the issue is that minimum cast range that they put on the miasma that now has to go a certain distance. You can't cast it directly on yourself, which is weird for people who played cast, because you could do that before and it would help you kite a lot. But now it just I don't know why they did that. I think maybe because they thought it was going to be too powerful as a grounding tool, but
Yeah, maybe they underestimated the reduction in movement speed, compounding that with you can't cast W on yourself to peel. I mean, those two things combined just make it so that if somebody jumps on top of you, you're fucked. Better have flash available.
maybe if they made it so that the W, like, it would expand the area it covers the farther you're casting it. So if you cast it on a small area right in front of you, it's a very small amount, so that you're not like getting a crazy amount of coverage, like a wall right in front of you.
Yeah,
maybe
like
that
instead
would
of the full arc,
help
maybe.
it.
So you don't get the
Yeah.
full arc, maybe just get a little point. And then
That'd be nice, I think.
that cone expands the farther out you cast it.
What was it? What was her old passive? 'Cause I
It was the you'd build up charges whenever you killed poison minions, and over time, and it would unlock like cooldown reduction, percentage AP. I think those are the two main spots. But that's what she would get. She'd get free stats eventually.
Free AP, yeah.
Yeah.
that actually hurts quite a bit. Losing is something that I feel like that we should have seen when we were looking at it, but losing all those free stats just to gain movement speed.
I think that's kind of comparable to where she's at now as far as late game goes, because again, she has that 6-item slot. So she's kind of replacing those stats she got from the old passive with whatever item she puts in that slot.
Sure.
So it could be better or worse. I don't know what the total of those stats were on the old passive.
100 stacks plus 5% AP and Twin Fang now heals for 6 to 16 based on level. 250 stacks, again, 5% AP for a total of 10% and 25% cooldown reduction at 250 stacks. 500 stacks was 20% AP for a total of 30% ability.
Okay, that's a lot of percentage AP. What is that? That was 5%, 20%, and then what was in the middle?
5%, 10%, 30%.
Yeah.
And the middle was 25% cooldown reduction.
Perhaps that hurts a little bit.
Not having to build cooldown reduction on somebody and instead landing ease.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of stacks. 250 stacks is probably...
But again, we're talking about ultra late game here. And the same thing for her new passive. I mean, if you want to take advantage of that last item slot, you need to actually get 5 full items first.
Right, you have to make it that far into the game and be doing well enough to actually have the money to afford that 6th item, which most games don't go that long, so that is kind of wasted a little bit as well.
Well, they're doing that, and they've... Actually, all these balance changes have been added to at least the patch notes, and they should be into the game if they're not already, because Vladimir is getting a change as well. They're changing his Q empowered missing health ratio is increased to 4% AP from 2.5%, which kind of seems like it should have been pretty ridiculous anyway.
Sounded like the health cost in his E was too high. People were complaining about that.
Yeah, E-base damage increased to 30 to 90, 60 to 180, from 30 to 70, 60 to 140. So they're increasing the damage on it to probably make up for that extra health cost. But yeah, I've watched Vlad's play, and I feel like you're spending over a quarter of your pool just to throw any kind of combo, and he's spammable enough that you're not getting your enough life back through Q to keep up the sustain.
That's the same sentiment's been shared with me as well. I've had a bunch of people letting me know how they feel about the new Vlad. Some are pretty happy about it, others aren't so much. I think I've seen more people that aren't enjoying all of the health costs now in comparison to...
Is that the only problem, or like is his damage all right, or does he need more damage too?
They needed... apparently, like, the added damage on the Q has been extremely welcomed as well on that 3rd Q.
Oh yeah, taking it for giving it a percentage and a half extra damage based on the AP, since you're probably building a little bit more AP on them anyway now. Anytime you empower an ability, it really should feel impactful. Did you guys see the video earlier where there's a bug with Vlad? That
No.
When you get to that 2nd stack for the empowered Q, if you use Q the moment it's ready to cast, like the moment that the bar fills all the way up, it doesn't work. Like,
Really?
It goes off, but it doesn't do any damage.
That's a problem.
Damn, I thought you were gonna say if you time it perfectly, you get like triple damage or something.
No, it doesn't do any damage. But it's like a weird bug where it's the moment that the Q would fill or the bar would fill all the way up, and you use it the moment it's ready to use. It doesn't do any damage.
It would be a cool bonus, right? That'd be like some of those shooter games where if you time the reload perfectly, you get like bonus damage.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'd
That's
be
like
all
Gears
for
of
that.
War.
That's like
Yeah,
using
Gears
a
of
full.
War, there you
That's like
go.
using a full Syndra combo after you've knocked somebody in a wall to do like 6 times bonus damage or some stupid shit.
combo breakers. Yeah,
That would
throwing it
never
all.
happen. They'd never let a bug like that exist.
I think the only changes out of this that I can see working well is really the Vlad changes, and even that's hard to say because he still doesn't fare too well. Because honestly, playing the games, the meta hasn't really changed. There's nothing that has been I've seen this besides Malzahar, of course, who is at a 80% ban rate.
Besides Malzahar being pick ban every game, yes, nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, there's a lot of Z bans too, more so than before the patch.
Yeah, QSS change ban said. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of bans, though, right?
You know how I was making jokes about people picking up Zed and other assassins and just coming in and wiping the floor with people that are trying to play champions. I had that exact same situation happen today in a ranked game, and then the person who was on the receiving end of being beaten by a pretty good Zed player just doing nothing but bitching about how OP Zed is. It's like, okay, Zed is like the thing that has stayed constant this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems
So
like
I'm looking at a lot of the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. That's shit. I was looking at a lot of the win rates of the mid laners. So we talked about the ones that just got dumpstered on. Obviously, Malzahar's the other one that skyrocketed. But it looks like a lot of the ones that used to build Roa and still will build Roa and got helped by these patches are doing really well. Like Aurelion Sullen mid is way up there right now. Karthus, Annie, Brand, Zyra's jumped up a good bit. Like a lot of champions, I think that liked the old Catalyst passive are now really liking the new one. And I think that's kind of influencing the changes a lot because from what I've been looking at the items, it's the one people understand really well and are still building. They're not branching out too far to the new Hextech items too quickly. I don't see a lot of the champions that have those. I'm not surprised that people haven't mastered how to use them yet. But I think after a couple more patches, some of those champs that are benefiting from Rocket Belt, Proto Belt, which I think is like the Kennons, I think will do really well. But it's going to take more than one patch because that the Roa builds are dumpstering people right now.
See, there's a few champions, kind of like the Kennons, right? He's middle, he's 48.28% win rate, which is still respectable. And anybody who's 1 to 2% either way, it doesn't necessarily need a nerf or buff. When you have to get down to like 45% or lower to really like they need a buff or nerf, because there's a lot of champions like LeBlanc, for example. She's at a 47%, almost 48% win rate in mid, and we know she's still really good in the hands of the correct player. And that's how I feel with Kennen. Even with that Rocket Belt, Kennen he's too hard of a champion to play because of the passive balancing and understanding how to use that properly to put in the hands of somebody new and let them just wreak havoc. Like Karthus, for example, he's up really high. You build Rod of Ages, you run in, you just key in your Eon, press a W down, and you pretty much clean up a team fight in solo queue by yourself. And then, of course, those who excel with it will always do better. And what was I going to say? Oh, let's talk. I'll give you the top 5 here real quick. Is Malzahar, Aurelion Sol, Karthus, Annie, Galio are your top 5 middle champions right now. Have you guys played against the new Annie yet?
I have not.
I'm not.
So I don't know if it's an animation change or if it's just something really, or if it's the Hextech skin. I think it's the Hextech skin, but I don't notice the alt coming down because you're used to seeing like this big red splash, and the Hextech skin is a big blue splash. The first time she dropped it on me, I thought it was Volibear running at me. I shit you not. I was like, how the fuck is Volibear in this game? Where did he come from?
There are some similarities. Yeah, I could see that.
Man, I know they buffed her, but she can summon Volibear now?
It felt like it. That bear is scary as fuck, though. It doesn't do near as much damage when it drops, but that bear, if it's not CC'd within a half a second, if that, after it drops,
It's going to eat you.
It eats you. Yeah, it mauls you.
I'd love to see. I don't think there's stats kept right now, but pet damage would be interesting to see this patch.
It would be.
I know that this is probably the first time that it's even really relevant, because you're not like really wanting to care about how much Shaco clones are doing. Like that's important, but it's not like this was a major change to show pets doing stuff. This and the Voidlings, the Malzahar,
and
like
Zyra.
both of those would be incredible to see those, and Zyra too. All of those, this patch would be awesome to see.
I think I know the
We'll
answer to
have
this.
somebody doing it.
be kind of interesting because Tibbers now does a lot of like auto attack damage too. That counts as physical damage from Annie, even though it's from a spell technically. But it breaks it down to magic and physical. So that'd come up as physical in the stat sheet, right?
I'm checking that right now.
Patch, tell us.
Patch,
I'm sure it doesn't say specifically, but
Yeah.
No, it's magic damage with his basic attacks.
oh,
So
is it?
It's still magic. Yep. She's doing significant, like she's doing under 4% physical damage right now. So yeah, it's magic damage on autos from him. And it says that too. So
on her character sheet, right?
Yep.
So something else to note with these win percentages, and it's Santana had brought it up, and I hadn't thought about it when I was looking at these. And humorously, I always bring this up when we're talking about what their play rates is that Ari and Fizz are actually doing really well considering the number of games that are being played on these champions, because Ari's at a 53.52% win rate with an average number of games of 66.87. Which is actually, it's lower than what Annie. Like, Annie's doing really well. It's doing higher with having more games. But with an average 66.87 games at 53% win rate, Ari is faring fairly well in the mid lane right now against all these other champions.
I heard
All these other
Protobelt is really good on
mages.
Ari. And Whale was saying that he really likes Fizz in this patch because the new items really complemented him well.
Yeah, Fizz
I
was
should have
another
asked him
one
what
to bring
those
up.
items were, but I mean, off the top of my head, that would be Abyssal Scepter. Fizz is still building that, and Zanyas as well.
And he likes CDR.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
a cheaper
that makes
zone.
both of those have now.
But both of those characters do well against, at least historically, immobile mages, right? And who do they rework? And a bunch of people are playing now immobile mages.
Sure.
So it looks like their win rates both went down a little bit, but I think that's just because there's more parity. Like more of the people near the middle and the bottom were kind of brought up, but they're still doing real well. You're right.
Well, out of the number of champions in this game, there are 114 of them that are above 50% win rate right now. Well, actually, I'm sorry. There's 199 slots because there's 4 roles, but the top 114 are above 50% win rate. I apologize.
Okay. Stop confusing me.
Yeah. I confused myself for a
Like,
moment. Then I
like
looked down.
the bottom 15 in that scenario are just terrible.
Oh, man. This poor 15.
I actually wish I could. I don't think you can. Oh yeah, you could list this by. Well, you could kind of list this by champion and then divide it in half. Because no, you'd have to divide it by. You can't do that actually. I'm gonna say you can't really divide it by 2 or divide it by 3 because not all the champions that are in jungle are gonna be played top or mid.
Bao Bao chimed in on Fizz. You confirmed that it was the CDR. CDR added to Abyssal and to Zanyas.
I got you, Bao Bao.
He's gonna do it. The other champion I want to talk about is Twitch, because this is probably the most surprising win rate change that I haven't seen in a while. Is Twitch is the winningest ADC right now at 55.1% with an average of 30 games played. And somebody asked earlier, why is Fizz suddenly coming back? And I was scratching my head thinking about it, talking about it. Yeah, or excuse me, I said Fizz. I meant Twitch. Thank you.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, I saw you the slight discussion on that, but I didn't really have a great answer for it either off the top of my head.
I started looking into it a little bit, and he's had a lot of changes, positive changes, over all throughout patch 5, or the patch season of 5 or season 5, whatever you want to call it. He's had a lot of changes that have been positive for him, and Twitch just historically has been one of those champions who's always been good no matter the changes he gets. I mean, unless they're like completely and totally negative, because there was one time where he was just completely rampant, destroying everybody.
But before that, he was a monster, and they did it to deal with the fact that he was such a monster.
Exactly. And they changed it. They gave him more damage on his passive. They gave him the Q resets. What is it? Is it Q resets auto attack timer now properly? They fixed Q so it works properly, and they also increased.
Entering stealth now cancels Twitch current auto attack order.
Yeah, they fixed something with his Q, and I can't remember exactly what it is. That's gotta be what it is. But they also increased like his base damage back in 5.22 and attack damage. They increased his base damage early, so he has an easier time last hitting, and trading early, and a lot of these changes start compounding on the champions, and suddenly he just busts out again. He just reminds me of that. He's always been that rat that just kind of lurks in the shadows, and people forget about him, and then they pick him up and they're like, "Oh shit, Twitch is actually really good."
That fits well with his lore.
I think when Runan started becoming a good Zeal item, he also got some love from that. But
Yeah.
so him and Ash have actually had high winning percentages for the last few patches, but Twitch has actually jumped up like 3% in this patch, so there definitely seems to be something there. And
Do you think it's just the slow itemization changes that have just slowly kind of worked in their favor? That and the only changes that they've seen at all within the past 6 months has just been slow.
it's a bunch of I think
bumps.
it's a bunch of small things.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that, like the nerf to Corki, who traditionally did well against him. If you're looking at his matchups, so I mentioned earlier when I was talking with Pone about this that he does well against Jin, but when I look at the matchups, he actually does well against everyone. He's got a winning matchup against everyone except Draven. So
Huh.
And Draven is the biggest lane bully out there. You bring up a good point though with that. Like the itemization has slowly kind of worked in his favor. Plus they've just nerfed all the lane bullies, and you typically saw Twitch as a great team fighter, but really had a hard laning phase with a shorter range and not really great burst and whatnot. So that makes a lot of sense in the combination of the two.
and if he can hide behind tanks who don't look like they're going anywhere, again the meta hasn't really shifted that much apparently. So if he can hide behind tanks and shoot at potentially those immobile mages at a safe range, then he's gonna see a lot of success.
Is it maybe also because so the ones that jump out to me a little bit also are Jinx is kind of up again. Jinx, Sivir, Ashe, Twitch. And my thoughts on that are consistent damage dealers that are kind of susceptible to burst, but are just going to do safe damage. And with all the I think of the changes that are making the mages a little bit more sustained damage oriented, they're going to do better in this kind of meta. And I think that might be another portion of it, is that they're saying they're having elongated team fights with this tanky kind of meta. Now the mages are doing it too, and the 80 carries are doing it too. And there's not so much burst to take out these 80 carries, so they're able to survive longer, do more damage. Twitch is the best mobility wise of those, not named Sivir, because he can at least go invisible, get around, shoot from really long range if he wants to. But I wonder if that's maybe part of the changes too that's helped him a lot.
I think that and all of those auto attack focused ADCs are having success, and Twitch is actually kind of good against them since he can just ambush them and then, all right, it's an auto attack battle. Twitch has got an increased attack speed from his Q. I think he's going to win that one.
And don't forget that he's got a spike that the other ADCs don't get, because he can finish Yumu's Ghostblade, or at least get the components that do more for him than traditional AD carries that may rush high edge. Or, I mean, Lucian is the only other champion that into Twitch that I could see that really would counter Twitch, because Lucian can bully anybody out pretty early through a good combo. A good Lucian's going to bully a lot of ADCs out.
And
I
he's got
agree.
a 50.23% win rate, but he sees the most play with almost a 40% play
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah, that's what.
But he's
that's what
also
gets me paused.
safe to first pick in any situation because he never does terribly. But I mean, how many nerfs has he and Corki seen? And they typically kind of crapped all over Twitch in laning phase, and just kind of
there's a nice spike here with Twitch when it comes into picking up Yumu's Ghostblade, because you get the move speed increase, you get the attack speed increase through W. There's cooldown reduction, etc. And it's kind of like that Corki, Trinity Force spike that he got, the traditional. He does the same thing, because I mean you're also getting armor penetration through Yumu's, which can bust through a lot of those tanks and junglers early.
And especially if you can get that and immediately go gank mid lane with it out of stealth with your ultimate and pop the active and pop your Q and ultimate and just burst someone.
So why aren't we seeing submarine comps with Taric yet? That's what I want to know.
It took me a second to realize what you meant by submarine
I've seen a lot of Taric bans.
Dude, Taric is good.
Still? He is still good.
Yeah,
but
even
I haven't
with
seen
the
any
changes
bans
I've
recently.
seen, at least for the past 6 games I've played, I think he's been banned in all of them.
So I want to touch on Lucian for another second, because I agree that I think Lucian should be a lane bully to Twitch, and I think he still is.
Probably is, yeah.
So I was wondering why Twitch still had a high win percentage when Lucian had such a high play percentage. And if you look at Lucian's win rate by game length, it plummets real fast. And I think, again, that might have to do with tankier champions. I know whenever I've played Lucian, I've always been frustrated that mid game comes around and I stop doing damage. So I think that might be the point where Lucian's at is, all right, maybe he can dominate the laning phase, but Twitch is going to outshine him later, hands down.
That also would come into the changes to death timers, making the game longer. So that's going to help AD carries that scale a little bit better.
And the
You have more time. You have more time to do it.
Yeah,
the games aren't getting over so quick. And Rift Herald as well. We don't know how good Rift Herald is yet. I don't think. But
well, the damage increase in towers, the armor and magic resistant towers, making them hard to take down, making it prolongs laning phase by a hair. With that, something else to think. Something that I don't think a lot of people consider when playing Lucian is he's kind of clunky to play. A little bit. Like he's smooth, but he's clunky in the fact that you can easily cancel your auto attacks or not start them after casting an ability if you're not right clicking properly. If you expect to Q and then auto attack right away that target, there's a lag in between when he's casting. If you don't have twitchy fingers.
It goes away with attack speed, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Laning phase, that's really very noticeable.
Yeah, I can't explain it. You have to play. Really have to play Lucian to understand it. But there is a delay between trying to do that whole combo, and I think it's something that makes Lucian harder to play. Even though he's having decent success rate because of the amount of damage he can pump out even through that. That really does separate those pro level and mid range players of Lucian, is being able to abuse his auto attacks. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess once we're talking about game length and we're talking about times and whatnot, we could probably talk about dragons now as well, because those have had a significant impact on this game.
Hey, how about our game after last Wednesday when we had
the one that we never killed a single dragon?
Yeah.
Hey man, wasn't that 3 wind dragons? We don't care about those.
It was 2 water, 2 wind.
Oh, 2 water.
Yeah. Either way, just I feel bad for having severely underestimated the wind dragon, not because I think they'll be able to rotate quicker, more just it saves time. Like you just are saving time for the rest of the game, which seems like a lame thing to do, but is actually really important. Just at all times you are now that much quicker than your opponents. That's really nice.
We had a fight in the bot lane where I think they ended up cleaning up 2 or 3 kills, and then we're at mid lane to defend that within like 8 seconds.
Oh yeah, just the rotations were crazy. How fast they can move.
It's particularly nice when you control the whole map like they did.
That's all right.
Like, look at all the space we have to run around.
It's easier to do with that buff though. Yeah.
I was trying to play Blood Razor Warwick, which Blood Razor is completely and totally underwhelming at this point.
It's not good.
It's fucking awful.
It's not good. Warrior, I would argue Warrior's better on anyone who's building Devourer before.
Speaking of low win percentages, Yi is down there as far as jungle goes, 43.2%.
Devour jungles that are not named Kindred have all plummeted in win rate.
Well, and meanwhile, Kindred was still building Warrior, so
she was building Devour a lot.
You could build either.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely.
So and initially she was building only Warrior and was still doing very well. So I Devour.
Shyvana is one of the losingest junglers right now, if I remember correctly. I have to pull that back up.
So this is great. Just while you're getting that up,
42.2%.
Warwick jungle both of his frequent builds and highest win builds don't include a jungle item, which is hilarious.
Wow.
His highest win item is Bork, Merc Treads, another Bork, and then Sunfire Visage G, which I think is incredible that that's even a build that people are using.
Why aren't they doing Wit's End?
No, the most frequent one is, but they're just doing 2 Borks instead.
They took Blood Razor. I mean, we looked at it. We're like, okay, this would do a lot of damage, but then we kind of forget that Blade of the Ruin King exists, and Blade of the Ruin King does everything Blood Razor does better.
Well, we didn't forget it exists. We put it to the wayside because it was more expensive.
Yeah.
Usually you can't build both on jungle. You don't have the money to. Unless you're really
it was the same
anyway.
reasoning that was the same reasoning for a lot of people. It was Ginsu's was better. It put way more output than Blade of the Ruin King did. So anyone who could build Blade of the Ruin King, oh yeah, sure, it gives us a little bit of health back when we're smacking things, but like Ginsu's is really good, so let's do that and just wave clear everything and do a bunch of damage and have a great time. And since both that and Devour have been changed a little bit, welcome back, Blade.
Yeah.
Expense be damned. We're gonna buy the item that's the best.
Well, if you've been playing the game and you haven't been focusing on dragons and using these early warrior and other buys, these early game junglers or these good dueling skirmish junglers to your advantage that are not devourer jungles, you're missing out on a lot because dragons right now are really powerful and they need to be taken because obviously they compound on each other. I mean, all the information is right there in front of you.
You know, he could solo dragon pretty early by himself. Warwick.
This is interesting too
Fiddlesticks.
because Jax,
Those are-
Udyr, Yi, all of these Devourer champions were extremely high win rate during the height of that item, and now all of them are
Good.
at the bottom end of the
Don't
list.
miss them.
On the same
wanna see him
token,
anymore.
though, this is going to be a lot easier of an item to tune for Riot to kind of tune and buff if they see fit than Sated ever was and ever will be. So now that they have this in a spot where they can twist some levers and properly balance the item, it's a lot better of a state of the game than it ever was with Devour before. I think it's most interesting is that with all these fluctuations, Elise shot up 12 spots, and I like that.
I think it's kind of weird that. Well, okay, I don't think it's kind of weird. I think I understand what they're doing. I think they purposely undertuned Bloodrazor to make sure that it wasn't too strong to start because the old Madrid's Bloodrazor did more damage still. Like it was 4%, this is 3%, and was kind of. I read somebody today saying it was a noob trap item, which is pretty true. It really wasn't built too much towards the end of its life cycle, besides on maybe Warwick, and I think that they really wanted to undertune it intentionally, and I think they'll buff it back up. Like, because obviously it's not doing well. It's not like people need to figure out how to use it because it's pretty straightforward. So I think that after a few mini buffs, maybe to 3.5%, maybe all the way back up to 4 that Madrid's was, I think it'll be okay. But it needs that first. It really 3% is kind of underwhelming.
It
It's
isn't-
also hard to compare the two because the old Madrid's was magic damage and it wasn't a jungle item. It was built on some
80
80
carries.
carries. And that's what it was a noob trap for. It was a noob trap when you saw your 80 carry get it.
It was still junk. No matter when you bought it in the game, it was junk.
No,
Old
I know,
Madrid's
but
Bloodrazor.
armor penetration was so much stronger and easier to buy back then.
That's true.
And it didn't do armor damage. It didn't do physical damage. It did magic damage. So putting that on your late game 80 carry did jack shit. Sorry.
Well,
Jack
did you
crap,
really
Jack
say
shit.
sorry? Did you say sorry to curse harder?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah, he did. He
it
did.
happened.
I don't know. Something in my brain wanted to be PC for a half second. I don't know what
Fuck
I was
you.
doing.
I
I
wanted to go back to what Mitch said about the new item is straightforward. It's completely straightforward. You buy that item and there's no thought into it anymore. It's not like Devour where you actually had to like plan out how you were gonna kill camps or power farm out or like make decisions on that. It's buy it and go. So
Very brain, and it's not like Bork where you have an active that's kind of
Right.
unique, fun to use. It's very
That-
brain dead.
That changed Devour. I don't like the item. I don't ever want to see Devour back. But I will admit that I like that. And okay,
It was fun to have like a quest.
it
Yes,
was
it was.
fun to learn to play the game differently with the item, even though most people didn't play the game that way. Like they weren't ganking and they weren't taking objectives and doing those extra. A lot of people weren't doing that, but it was still fun that you could play that differently. Like you could play, you had to play the game differently to have the item, and that was fun. I think that was fun and unique to play through the item. But speaking of taking objectives, this is what I've been trying to get to about the dragons because there's a unique interaction with the Earth Dragon that I think everybody needs to know about. Because if you're a jungle main, smite damage, Nunu Consume, Cho'Gath R, anything that does damage, like true damage to a jungle minion, does more if you have Earth Dragon. You'll do 1,100 damage with with Smite late game with the Earth Dragon buff, for example, with the first tier buff.
he's the anti-objective dragon.
So
Yeah, just kill them.
yeah, if you take an Earth
Is that a
Dragon,
bug or?
you do 10%
that makes sense.
more damage.
Every auto attack, every spell
Yeah,
deals
okay.
10% true damage, and so including smite gives you an extra 10%.
Yeah, okay.
Just does true damage.
Right, but it's really unique to note that if you have Earth Dragon, you need to add that 10% damage into it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So your combo, if your smite bar says 700,
1,000. Just
you
do
can
the
add-
flat level
yeah.
18 1,000. 1,100 now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a unique interaction that people need to know about if they have the Earth Dragon and why it's even more important to prioritize that dragon. if it comes up.
Well, I almost always use smite in combination with like a spell, no matter who I am. Obviously, if it's Nunu, you do consume. Even if it's someone like Jarvan, you do a Q smite at the same time or release. You Q and then smite midair. So like I do that math in my head before I Q smite, and like if it smite's 1,000, I assume that the Q is going to do 200 to 300 based on not doing the execution damage in my head, but just rough estimates. And then you could probably throw another, I guess, 100, 200 on that top if you have that Earth Dragon stacked up. So that is interesting.
There you go. You just learned something new. You taught me something jungling last week. I'm gonna teach you something jungling this week, even though I don't play jungle.
It's not true. You
Well,
played
I was
jungle
throwing out
last
the
week.
combo stuff.
I also
because
learned
that's
that
always
Kazakh's
helpful out.
clear is really fucking rough, but that's not here.
Oh yeah, he gets. Well, yeah, I haven't tried him in a long time.
His clear's been rough for a while, but I think he's doing okay right now.
Now he's doing okay. He's
he's doing pretty well.
51%.
I got out cleared by a Fiddlesticks. Okay, the Fiddlesticks was a level ahead of me in clearing faster than I was.
He's number
good.
2.
He's
Just
Hey,
because
hey.
you thought it was going to be bad doesn't mean it was.
Yeah, in fact, you know what it's the opposite of right now? It's the opposite of bad. It's doing extremely well.
I did.
Fiddlesticks is a
I did
nightmare.
say that I would potentially eat crow with this. I did mention that.
Does anybody have a crow on hand?
That I can put through the screen.
I not only did I think you're the only one that thought that would make him weaker
No, I talked to a few other people that thought it would make him weaker as well.
on the
but
show. No,
on the
we're
show,
talking about
yes.
smart people. Yeah.
I don't see. I'm not. I'm not entirely convinced that those changes specifically made him better in the jungle. I kind of wonder. I mean, they obviously helped, right? Like I can't deny that, but I also wonder if the dragons helped more than anything, because he has historically known for taking a very early level 4 dragon as well to start snowballing his team. So I kind of wonder in combination if it's a combination of both the changes and the dragons that are making him more powerful, rather than just the base move speed increase and obviously more bounces on E.
Beep beep
See
beep.
both.
Does anyone else hear that?
I'm not backing up.
Don't
I
backtrack.
am analyzing the changes after the fact.
You're eating crow.
Hey, I said I would potentially eat crow. I admit that.
I know.
So he's also getting the same benefit Fizz is getting in cooldown reduction from Abyssal Scepter and Zanya's. Was he having a problem getting cooldown reduction before?
Yeah.
I mean, his first
there's no way
2 or
for
3
it.
items had no cooldown reduction in it. I mean, you'd always go Zanya's and your jungle item, your jungle AP item,
Okay,
and then
so this
usually
is-
like Abyssal. So none of that had CDR.
So this is a huge help for him then.
Yes.
Yeah, that plus the change to how his drain cooldown works now when it's starting at the end of the channel is going to make it so that those quick leash ones, like the ones that get broken pretty quickly, are way better because you have a lower cooldown. Then add the cooldown reduction on top of that. That's now frequent.
Yeah,
I think
that
it's-
helps.
yeah, that's gonna help a lot.
That helps his worst case scenario a ton, which is what he feared most, was getting invaded on and getting that interrupted at the very beginning. In which case, you're sitting duck.
Sitting
Yeah.
crow.
Just a quick backtrack, just because I decided to look at Surrender at 20 real quick. The PBE for Blood Razor is up to 4%.
Hey,
Hey, there it is.
Still physical, right?
Still physical.
Let's talk about more global objectives, because something else I wanted to touch on was Herald. Herald still kind of feels like that consolation prize. Like, hey, we're already ahead, or hey, people are backing. Let's just take this.
how many times have you actually gotten to take it and use it optimally though? Meaning the jungler didn't just take it and walk off.
Every
That's what happened
time
to me.
I played 10 or few lower games this weekend due to it being Mother's Day. So I honestly haven't gotten to play that much. I have taken Rift Herald twice, maybe 3 times, and every time we give it to somebody that's not the jungler.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it's the same people are just operating on the same mentality that don't even worry about Rift Herald. It is a consolation. Don't
It's
bother
hard
trying to
to
play
take.
differently with it. Don't try and use it the way it's meant to be
It's
I've
used.
way
noticed-
harder. It was
I've
so
noticed-
difficult to take in that game we played.
That's true, but like I've been seeing teams that have been getting dragons just take advantage of a kill in mid or top and then go get Rift Herald for one of their solo laners, or it's somebody who can go and fight things one-on-one anyway. Like it becomes a situation where it's like, all right, you wipe them at objective or you kill them at one thing and you just take something that's on the map. And let's say that you got that gank top and you killed their jungler. Half the time the bottom lane's not going to go duo dragon in the time it takes you to kill Rift Herald.
Yeah, I agree that I think dragons are still the superior objective right now. And I think another thing that might hurt Rift Herald is you can't trade the first dragon for it 'cause it's so hard to kill. So you're still contesting the first dragon, and then when second dragon runs around, well, are you going to really let them have the second dragon, or are you, and then take Rift Herald, or you can contest that one too? I mean, it's kind of hard to fit it in.
Phrasing?
Yeah, it because it's harder to kill now. It takes about 3 people to kill unless you're rolling around the 20-minute mark right before it despawns, and 2 people can take it fairly easily. But it'll take about 3 people to do it, and then you know they are doing it, so you have to do it after a kill or skirmish or some way to get the enemy team to not try to contest you at all at this point. Like, it isn't like it was before where you could still fight with it beating on you because you wouldn't take that much damage. You were still significantly low when you took it, but you could fight, around it.
I almost always just took it if we happen to have a gang succeed top anyway. So I don't. Is that changing?
It's hard to kill with 2 people.
Just 2 people. You think the mid laner has to come now?
We tried doing it at one point, and like one person was able to keep us
Severely poke you off of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's got like
pretty easily.
11,000 life generally before you start.
It seems like
taking
it's
it.
very, very hard to take, or like it takes longer at least.
Mm-hmm. It had a 2,000 base life increase at level when it first spawns. And by the time you get around to taking it, it's got about 11,000 life and some additional armor and MR. So it's not a walk in the park by any means. Just I like that there's that other thing there. I like that there's other piece, and maybe professionals will be able to make a better use of the buff than what a solo can. But by the time that I've seen people taking it, you're grouping up, and then you can't really use that buff. Or they're using it to quickly push a side lane. Now, Chira, you mentioned you were watching Night Blue earlier.
Yeah, and he was saying that it's particularly good on assassin junglers. And that he really hates it on solo laners. He just likes it on assassins. That way, if you end up finding one person, you just insta-give them, and there's nothing they can do. It makes assassins better at doing what assassins do, which is picking people off.
That's also mostly what Night Blue plays, though.
Right.
That's his like kind of jungle mentality is.
And he was playing Kha'Zix when he was saying it and doing very well.
He plays Wukong jungle. He plays the assassin jungler. So he's very.
So there's definitely going to be some bias
oriented.
with that.
Yeah.
But I think that buff is still going to be good on anyone who's good in a 1v1 situation. But like I told you earlier, if you are banking on that one person swinging the game for you and you're using that as your excuse not to pay as much attention to Dragon, that's a really bad mentality to have with the current state of how strong dragons are.
But do you maybe, if you're a smart player, do you maybe not say, we're just going to trade it as a consolation prize, we're going to make it our priority because our bot lane is going to be weak just by nature of the picks, and our top lane can make real good advantage and make real good use of this buff? Is that something you could see happening? Or do you think that the issue is not that it's too hard to take, that the buff just isn't worth it now?
I mean I've seen people be able to get, like, I don't know if the buff's that much worth it now. I still want to see what the numbers are for teams that end up getting it, what their win rate is, and that's not exactly something that's going to be super easy to just parse. But I've had it a couple times, and I've been doing really well in the game, but that doesn't help you.
Yeah, it feels good,
any more
right?
pressure
It feels
all over
kind
the
of
place.
cool, and you get the cool purple sparks and everything.
It's great when you get in a 1v1 situation and you feel like you can 2v1 and things are going really well, and then when the team fighting starts and it's not doing that, it's like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I can only split push for so long before there's nothing left to split push.
I'd like to see an organized team come with a strategy where they focus that. They've got some certain timing where, like, all right, at X minutes we're going to go take Rift Herald, and we've got the split pusher who's going to use it. I'd like to see that happen, but I don't think we're going to until possibly LCS hits. You're not going to see it in solo queue. So that's why it's hard for me to get a read on new Rift Herald. It's like people are just ignoring it right now.
It becomes a thing too. Like, I guarantee if some pro team makes some amazing thing happen with it, everyone's going to try and emulate it within 3 minutes of that happening. Like the game could still be going on and people are queuing up in ranked just to try that. So
Jungle Heimerdinger
that's how
soloing
it
in
works.
5
I
minutes,
mean, people get moist over the stuff that they see. And
That's true of any change.
It's
so
true. That's
But this is a more radical change, so that would be interesting to see what kind of direction. they take
Sean,
it
that
in.
just kind of goes back to this whole podcasting thing. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter if we were 5 master level players. We're not pros, so some people aren't gonna listen to us.
Yeah,
You know what
I mean, it becomes like it's interesting. You want to talk about like bandwagon? It's immediate bandwagon and like bandwagon. Oh, it worked one time. Great, we're gonna do that from now on. And if you don't jump on that train, it's not gonna work. Like, well, let's go to. I hate using this as an example, but like World of Warcraft, there was one of the. I don't remember what major site that it was that people used to go to like look up stats and builds and basically like figure out ways to play things. And after about 5 years, they
Thoughtbot?
ended up. No, it was actually. I think it was something that had to do with Ask Mr. Robot or something like that. It was one. It was some site that used to it would take the DPS logs and like try and break down what the best way to do things were. But they came out and they're like, yeah, we kind of feel bad because we feel that people like us trying to min-max everything ruins any actual creativity when it comes to the rest of the game, because people stop trying to figure stuff out on their own and they just copy exactly what they think the best people are doing, and the best people might not be right is the problem. So
what was that? Is it what was the arena site? Not arena, the dungeon.
Arena
site.
Junkies?
Not Arena Junkies. There was a dungeon site for that raid bosses or some bullshit that people would go to, and they would elitist jerks. That was
elitist jerks.
Where they would have some guy who was really fucking good at math parse every piece and every rotation and give you the perfect rotation for your maximum DPS and everything.
There were
like
a couple sites that were doing similar things, and then there was people like post logs, and people would run sims, and basically what it came down to was some of the people running one of those sites were like, yeah, we're guilty of stifling on paper, like, and this came as a result because some guy was like did things he like changed things up a little bit in comparison to what they had said, and his actual DPS compared to what their estimate was way higher. And they're like, wow, well, we're not always right. So there you go. Like, I just worry because with something like this, either it's going to work right away or it's not going to work right away. And if it doesn't, they're going to buff it. And if it was in an okay spot and it didn't work right away and they buff it, then it's going to be really, really terrifying and it's going to be a problem. And then they're going to have to go back and nerfing it. And it becomes this weird, like, tide goes in, tide goes out sort of thing. But I don't know. I hope they can find a way to at least put a little bit of power back onto it, because right now it definitely feels like the team bringing this back around. The teams that get those dragon is way more meaningful than anything else. Like dragons mean way more than Baron. Dragons mean more than Rift Herald. If you're not the team that's getting dragons, you're not the team that's winning the game.
But can't the same be said that if you get an early advantage top side of the map and you do get the Rift Herald, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to get those dragons?
Now,
because assuming you get a double kill on like a top lane and jungler, they're not going to be able to take dragon with just
that's
AD
fine.
carry and stuff like that.
And that is an example of like, okay, so you go top lane. Let's say you're able to get that early kill top, and then you can roll right in and take Rift Herald. The problem is new Rift Herald is stronger early, so it's harder to take him early. If one person has a little bit of poke and can poke you off or pick up kills on you, it was a wasted effort to even take that. If you are able to kill it and they can't take dragon in the meantime, yes, that can work great. But
there's a lot of if, ands, or buts, or there's a lot of conditionals in League of Legends, and that's something that I think you're trying to get at, is that even though we're telling you that Rift Herald may not be all that's cracked up to be,
you can find a way to make it to work.
Yeah, we're not saying it's not actually that. It's just it seems at this point in time that it's hard to take and that it's harder to use.
It's going to be much, much more difficult to get the same benefit out of taking Rift Herald in the same amount of time it would be to take dragons.
That's a fair point. I think that sums it up perfectly right then and there.
You can make it work, but it doesn't.
Mitch, you have a thinking face on.
Yeah. I've been having a thinking face because there's been a lot of talk for like the last 5 or 10 minutes. I think the other part is that dragon makes sense to everyone initially, like all those numbers make perfect sense. Like you understand exactly what you're getting with those, and the Rift Herald buff takes we're not sure what's optimal yet for that. Dragon, you say you take it, good, done. With Herald, it's like, are you going to split push? Are you going to put it on somebody else? I think that what's going to happen with the pro scene is that people are going to fight a lot more for both sides really early on, because I think they'll have a good idea of how to use it, and then people will see how to take advantage of Herald. But I think you guys are right it's not going to be that great solo queue. I think it requires a lot more team play to be able to be effective, because you're essentially putting a very strong advantage on one person,
You're
who then
hoping
becomes
that
more
one
advantaged by
person
being
swings everything.
You're hoping he swings that whole thing by himself, but also has to play by himself to do so, or at least to take it full advantage of that, which shoves the rest of the focus potentially down bottom. And then you're hoping that the jungler has to go top to counter the Rift Herald buff, and then you guys can go dragon or force stuff bottom. It's way more about team play than Dragon is, which is we take it and everyone's doing great because of it.
We take it and it gives us flat bonuses.
Yeah, that's such an easy one to understand. When I think that's we haven't had a 6.9 pro game yet, which is when, as you're saying, everyone's going to see it and maybe figure it out. I think it'll take a little bit longer, because I think even the pros aren't even playing on it yet, because they're practicing now if they're not at MSI. But
to Chira's point, so you're getting that item or getting that buff, and you're putting all on one person. You're putting all your hopes in that one person. Well, if it's a tank versus tank top lane, that buff's not going to make a difference. It's still going to be a farm fest. No one's going to kill the other person. So you're really kind of just wasted it at that point. It's only optimally used by split pushers, which you don't see that much anymore.
I guess split pushers are junglers at that point. If you have a tank top lane, I guess then you toss it in the jungler to try to use it somewhere else, because it does do extra damage to dragon and whatever. It can help you take objectives.
Exactly. That was kind of my point, was it helps you take dragon and stuff. You're going to get like 3 or 4 procs of that while taking the dragon if you're an auto attack jungler. So,
well, assuming you're by yourself. If you're standing near an ally, you won't get it. Stack. Right. So
yeah. I'm sorry. I tried some more with jungle and soloing all that stuff. It was fun, but
it's easy to forget that it doesn't work around your allies.
Well, I think the answer is to play Malzahar, who can solo both Rift Herald and Dragon, and then he gets the damage reduction from the Rift Herald
at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hate to cut this conversation short. I hate to cut us under an hour, but the LCS Rundown does go live on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and they are up next to talk about MSI, the
craziness of MSI,
the craziness of Renegades, TIP, and what was it?
There's
TDK.
been so much that's gone on in the pro scene in the past week and a half.
Yes.
Just this morning.
And for those of you who have not listened to the LCS Rundown and want to listen to about their opinions on it, I actually do think that you should go listen to their opinions, because Mott has a very unique opinion on the situation, and I think it'll be worth listening to. As well, that they're limiting the discussion to 20 minutes. Like, Mott has a hard cutoff at 20 minutes for this discussion, so I think it'll be interesting to go listen to it, see what they can get done in 20 minutes. So, guys, check out the next episode of the LCS Rundown that comes out. That'll be out a little later this week. So, yeah, that'll be good. That's also coming up next, so you can listen to that live.
Hey, spoilers, Chris Badawi's fun to drink with. That's it. That's his opinion.
Yeah, Chris Badawi might be fun to drink with, but he obviously fills your head full of bad ideas and makes very large mistakes.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I think we're not the LCS podcast, but I think one of the favorite things I read was that for being a lawyer, he's an idiot, or having a law background, he's an idiot. And I was like, well, you're not wrong. All right, guys, that's episode number 358 of the Trinity Force podcast. Thank you all for listening to us. We will be back Wednesday with more discussion for your favorite League of Legends podcast. Please don't forget to tell your friends about us. We want to have more of you in our community. Discord.trinityforcenetwork.com. See you.
Peace.
Hey, guys.
Great.